Hi, this is Eric Griswold. I'm the composer of 84 Pianos. Thanks for joining us for 84 Pianos Global Pandemic Edition. I'm going to talk you through some of the logistics and the musical issues for playing this piece. Hopefully that'll get us all on the same page and answer most of your questions about the score. The first thing I'd like to mention is we're going to coordinate together with the use of stopwatches. I'm using this stopwatch. It looks like that on my phone. Hopefully you can access something similar to that. It's important that you set your phone so that it won't go to sleep during the performance. And what's going to happen is right at 6 p.m. on the day of the performance, we're all going to press start together. We're not going to start playing immediately. As you can see in the score, the first note of the piece happens at 5 minutes. So there's going to be 5 minutes of radio introduction before we actually start the piece. Alright, so once you've got your stopwatch going, that's going to guide you for the timings for each section. Some of the sections you need to be playing right with the clock, and other sections you just need to be aware of when to begin and end. The first cue we want to play together as precisely as possible, and that is at exactly 5 minutes. We're going to do this big double forearm cluster, which goes like this. And you're going to let that ring for the full 30 seconds of that cue. Now I'm just going to keep moving on. Part 2, out of Heart of Light. This is a section which is very flowing section. You can play with the pedal down for the whole time. And you'll notice that the tempo is quarter note equals 120. If you like, you can use the second ticking on your stopwatch as a guide for the tempo there. So as you can hear, I'm just leaving the pedal running through that whole section. Once you get going with this, you can vary the number of beats and the number of, and also the length of the fermatas there. So that's completely up to you. You don't need to coordinate with anybody else. This sound texture continues on the next page at 7 minutes, but I've written it in a shorthand notation. What that means is continue what you've been doing before, ad-lib basically, and you're adding notes on each system. Okay, so I hope that's easy enough to follow. One of the things to keep in mind here is you'll notice that on that page we have a new note added every 30 seconds. You don't need to change right on the 30 seconds. So what you should do is you just finish the phrase that you're doing, and then when you're ready, move on to the next line. So we just keep things flowing through this whole section, part 2. Now moving to part 3, which is low rumbling. Now here, this is one of the sections where you really need to follow your stopwatch. So it's probably a good idea just to really familiarize yourself with the patterns of notes that you have, whether you're group A, B, or C, so that you can keep one eye on the stopwatch and one eye on your keyboard. Basically, this is just a loud, thundering tremolo. I'm going to play it with two hands so I can get a little bit more power. And so on. So just trying to keep those swells and the tremolos going through this whole section. And staying with your stopwatch. Okay, now let's have a look at part 4, Blue Non Caro. This one is, again, you're playing independently here. So at 12:30, as soon as you're ready, you just launch in and start playing with using your own timing in terms of the fermatas. Some of your fermatas can be long, some short. Mix it up. Mix it up. Have fun with that section. Okay, and then continuing this on page 2 of Blue Non Caro, we move to some scale passages. Again, quarter note equals 120, so you can follow the seconds on your stopwatch as a rough guide. So again, you can mix up the pauses. Some of them can be short, so you just go straight on to the next phrase. Some of them you can have a nice break. So just have fun with that. Try to make something musical with that, with those pauses. Crashing waves. So this is one we should probably aim to really switch at right at 18 minutes here. It's nice to get that big mass cluster effect. So this the technique I'm wanting here is you're doing palm clusters. So you have your hand flat like this, and you're playing only on the black keys here in a very percussive way. Okay, so pace yourself in this section. So obviously, I'm looking for a really big crashing sound, but I don't want anybody to hurt themselves. So you find a good level for you to play at, and this needs to go for what, 2-3 minutes. So just don't knock yourself out right at the beginning. Just find a good level that you can sustain for the 3 minutes. Okay, part 6, giant steps. We're back to the double forearm cluster. So this is exactly the same technique we did at the very beginning, but as you can see, we're making a very long crescendo. Okay, I'm not going to give the whole thing away now, so you can have a play through that. So the idea is to go from pianissimo to the quadruple F. Okay, now looking at part 7, sun showers. This one should be pretty self-explanatory, I hope. Play as written. Um, the only thing to maybe that you need to know is if you have finished playing the page, you just go ahead and repeat as much as needed until you get to the next time cue. Okay, part 8, buzzing. I think this is one of those sections where it can be a bit improvisatory, really. What I've given you is 4 examples of the sort of figure that I'd like you to play, and I'd like you to familiarize yourself with that, and then you can create your own variations. So the idea is the buzzing, like a bee buzzing past your ear. Chromatic runs, fast chromatic runs, and then you can see a variety of different dynamic profiles with spiky sforzandos and diminuendos. So have a look at those examples, and I think you'll get the idea, and you can create your own versions of those figures. Part 9, ripples. Again, play freely. So most sections, as you've seen, are play freely with a couple of exceptions that we've already seen. So the ripples, this is playing big octaves, big octave leaps all across the piano. I think once you spend a bit of time and understand the pattern, you'll have no problem with this, but it might just take a while to get used to the leaps. Each one of these, you can treat it like it's a big cadence, a big ending figure. So I think you can really, in a way, ham it up on these. So it's just like everyone's like you've just finished a concerto and you're giving a punctuation at the end of the concerto. Again, playing freely, everyone in their own time. You can take long pauses, short pauses. You decide. And finally, we get to the last page, which is, I guess, doesn't have a title. It's the second part of Ripples. So this last page, these are slow, delicate swells that are kind of fading into the end of the piece. Okay, and you have a couple of cues in there, and I hope that will be pretty self-explanatory. Again, when you go from one cue to the next in these independent sections, you don't need to switch exactly on the cue. So you just finish the phrase that you're doing here, take a pause, and then go on to the next section. Okay, well, I hope that gives you something to go on. Gives you a bit of a sound for each section, and yeah, I'm looking forward to putting this all together.